So right now, PlayStation needs solutions. Anybody you ask will tell you that they're not really quite aware of what roadmap they're taking. We also know that they pretty much gave away the game when they admitted that they were being dominated by Xbox. In their leaked internal documents, we got to see that while they were somewhat feared by the possibility that Activision Blizzard King games would be exclusive to Xbox, they showed their hand. However, I thought we'd make a few speculative videos talking about possible steps they can take. And I gave 3 steps. In one of those steps, I said they needed to go back to the PlayStation 4. Now, I said this knowing that a lot of people will come out and tell me that, the PlayStation 4 is a last-gen console, we need to move forward. So I dismissed that. I just said all that talk about so-called next-gen, there's no such thing as next-gen. To that, one of my audience members said, yo, you need to go back and probably review what you said. What do you mean by that? In fact, shout out to Real Talk. They went ahead and said, hey, they disagree with all my statements, by the way, all my suggestions, I guess. They said your comments on next gen make no sense because even if a person wanted to put aside the marketing and, all that phrase of next gen and all the other smoke and mirrors that goes into that phrase, it doesn't change the fact that the hardware has to keep up with the standard expectation of running the standards of console consumers. Remember, console consumers are not the same as PC consumers. I agree. However, the same company makes everybody's stuff. So even though they may not be the same, their hardware is agnostic to what they know and how they feel. You feel me? That's exactly the point I'm trying to go ahead and put forward. AMD makes all the hardware, especially with the PS5 and the Series X. And if you think about it, AMD pretty much is making majority of the CPUs right now that we're enjoying in terms of best in class right now. So AMD being the winner is agnostic to how somebody may feel about their, Xbox Series X or their PS5. It's an AMD device in there. It will function just as well as any other AMD device out there of equal and similar capability. AMD will not jeopardize one arm of its computing just because of one thing. It wants all the customers to feel like they have equal access to the same kind of hardware computing. That's the very first thing. So I want to allow for my console, bros out here, guys, you are now in the PC realm. You just have a custom box. But the moment the moment PlayStation and Xbox said, we're bringing you that PC experience, wonderful. You're now in it. So now you're going to be treated equally. That's why the PlayStation 5 Pro got all of the analysis and dragging and, pinpointing and frame counting. And we'll still get more in a few days because you're now in it. And so there's no excluding you from it. I'm sorry. And that's how it is, bro. And so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to go ahead and point out this particular comment, because I thought it was actually a very interesting set of comments, because there are some points that you make here. In fact, if you were making these videos, they'll be yelling at you louder than me, because I thought we had some hope for PlayStation. But with your conclusions, I'm kind of scared to even address your video, because the PlayStation fans are going to go after me, because of what you're saying here. So it's very interesting anyways. They say you can't have Sony still using the PlayStation 4 when their competitors like Microsoft have next-gen hardware to be able to render the best and latest performance that's up to the standards of what console consumers expect. So this is more about the standard of expectation, not the marketing words being the next-gen, so I don't agree with you there. Now let me go ahead and pretty much address this. The very first thing I want to say is next-gen features can always be disabled for hardware that cannot support it, and can be enabled for hardware that can support it. In fact, I'm going to give you a very clear example. The PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Pro, both of them are even in the same generation of hardware. However, one of them can support PSSR, the other one cannot. That's the end of the argument. I could just walk away there. So you can make the same game, but make the PS5 Pro enhanced version of the same game, whereby the PS5 Pro owner will enjoy a specific level of visual improvement, while the PS5 base owner cannot, because their hardware does not allow them. The same principle will then apply if PlayStation decided that they wanted to make games for the PS4. The PS5 version will come with advancements, improvements, and the PS5 Pro version will come with advancements and improvements that are not accessible as you go lower in the tier of hardware. That's it. The second part of your argument where you said, why should they go back to the PlayStation 4 when the competitors have hardware to render? I'm not necessarily saying that that's not a good valid point. However, I'm saying that their competitors are already on the PS4. even with their latest releases like Call of Duty Black Ops 6, did we forget that actually the PlayStation 4 was one of the first places that got to enjoy the game based on some leak reports? So the PS4 is still a viable enough platform that even their biggest competitor with its biggest game is on that platform. Because at the end of the day, gamers, especially on the console side, yes, they may have marketed some stuff to them, but seemingly the PlayStation 4, 50 plus million strong, possibly, just a possibility, people on the PlayStation 4 are not interested in these new gen features. They just want to play the game. And I think, to me, that's something that, we that have bought the new generation of consoles, we need to go back and revise our thinking and our understanding. Guys, I drove to a different state to go buy my PlayStation 5. That's how there were no PS5s, and that's how much I wanted one. And at this point, I had a beast of a PC. I was running my Ryzen 9 3900X on my PC. Then I didn't want to buy any of the GPUs. They were too expensive, but my CPU was a monster at the time. I was using my 1080 Ti with it, basically bottlenecking the CPU, but any game could be played and rendered at beautiful frame rates, but I still went to buy the PlayStation 5. Number one, I like the ecosystem. I mean, my games and my library is built there for the most part, right? Alongside PC, I have a bigger library now. But I still wanted it because I wanted to see those features at work. But those features were all marketing, because then as the moment they make the game, they want to now render it and now add these features, the console is limited. You don't have any room to go. You don't have anywhere to go. So for someone like me who on PC, I can change my build at any time I want to basically meet any expectation that I want or I can afford, that was frustrating to a sense. I guess that's a whole different conversation. So I would call myself more of a hybrid gamer in that regard. So when they say next-gen features, when they say, oh, these are features that are here, it's very simple. You disable those features for hardware that cannot support them. If it's ray tracing, if it's whatever it is, there's the extra work that needs to be done, but that version is going to have, a lot of different aspects to it. So ideally, the whole business of game development has not changed, even within the NVIDIA GPUs. Let me show you another one that actually happened. It was Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2, when it first launched, already negated a good number of GPUs that could play the game. I thought that was a very big critical error, because you don't do that, especially on the PC side. PCs and the low-grade hardware and even console and the low-tier console hardware have been holding these developers accountable to actually work on, optimizing their games to be able to get and squeeze the best amount of, money out of the whole platforms available. If it wasn't for them, if everybody had upgraded, we'd be screwed even worse. So Alan Wake 2 went ahead and used, and implemented the mesh shader technology, which negated a whole bunch of GPUs that were out there. So he says this, if you look at this article, it says when it first was announced, Alan Wake 2 needs a graphics card that supports mesh shaders to run. PC gamers with AMD 5000 series or NVIDIA GTX 10 series GPUs were immediately disappointed. It turns out the game will actually run without them, but the performance is so poor that the mesh shader support really is a must. So what are they, doing, and what are they going to do? And then pretty much, they went ahead and implemented a system where you can still play now with the GTX. They removed that mesh shader requirement from their game. Well, the game now can run without them, so that people who have the GTX 10 series can still come into the ecosystem. As much as we want to go ahead and negate hardware because we want to get into the new and greatest, there's just nothing really big about it. Like, really, how much graphics can you render with it? This is Gotham Knights on an RTX 4090 5950X. If I played it on a different system, it will look slightly different, but it's all how much rendering power we can get and how much we can actually pull out of the ray tracing based on your computing. But if I was going to say, let's, maybe say the developers finally got around to saying, let's do the Gotham Knights version on PS4, they disable a lot of those features. They'll reduce a lot of the texture quality. They reduce a lot of the, the character mesh quality and so on and so forth, so that the game can run on those systems. Like the way Mortal Kombat 1 runs on the Nintendo Switch and the way a lot of these other games run on the Nintendo Switch, is simply an equation of them just ensuring that the hardware can do it. So if PlayStation made a game, say for a PS5 and PS4 version, which they've done many times, by the way, I mean, we're saying it like it's a foreign thing, but it's right here. We have so many examples. God of War Ragnarok has a PS4 version. Horizon Forbidden West has a PS4 version. But they're the extended versions that the PS4 cannot necessarily, support in terms of all of its new, aspects to it. Right? Even the Horizon, Forbidden West now, Horizon Zero Dawn, we now have like a much more advanced version where they've now made the, the remake or the remaster or whatever it is. But the PS4 and the PS4 Pro are going to render it differently. And that's where my point was in this conversation. So I hope that makes sense. I tried my best to go ahead and kind of like flesh it out as much as I can. The whole next gen thing, I think, is a ploy because it's very convoluted. You got to go across AMD and NVIDIA and what they can all provide at the end of the day. Because again, if NVIDIA says next gen, what does that mean for AMD, right? AMD cannot access frame generation. I said AMD cannot access frame generation. They have to make their own frame generation profile. NVIDIA makes its own frame generation profile, and it's only available for RTX 4000 series GPU. They negated the RTX 20 series and the 30 series, and so those series now have to go use AMD's frame generation, which it's just interesting. It's all just gimmicks at the end of the day, but they are features that can be useful. Not saying they're not useful, but it doesn't in any way negate the possibility of making games for older hardware. Thanks for watching. Peace out.